everyone to the Upgrade to OBI 11G webinar. I'm Kelsey Lunn, the Marketing Associate here at eCapital Advisors. eCapital Advisors specializes in performance management and business analytics solutions, enabling better business decisions with proven technology. We have consultants certified in both Oracle and IBM products located across the U.S., but we're headquartered in Minneapolis. One of these expert consultants is our speaker, Mike Jellin. Mike has been working in the Oracle practice for over 7 years and came to eCapital Advisors with a breadth of OBI knowledge. His contact information is listed here if you want to get in touch with him about any of your OBI questions. So with that, I'll hand the floor over to Mike.
Thank you, Kelsey, and thank you for everybody on the phone today for carving out time out of your busy schedule to join us in regards to really preparing for your OBI 11G upgrade here. So a couple of things to discuss on our agenda today and give you a little bit more insight into the Oracle BI practice at eCapital Advisors. Talk a little about the history of the 11G releases that have been out for almost 3 years now. And so just kind of talk through those different releases, what does the future look like, and then bring it back to, well, all right, that's great, what the past and the future looks like, but all right, let's dive into kind of the current state of OB 11G here, and then dive into really preparing for that upgrade. What are the different steps and things you can prepare for and plan for now prior to your upgrade? And then we'll talk about some of the approaches to the upgrading itself here. So very fun, very good topic to dive into. For those of you that are on 10G and very familiar with it, 11G is going to look and feel very different. Yep, there's going to be some pieces that are the same, but there's going to be a lot of really cool and neat features that are really going to help your organization or your business really advance with the technology itself here. So just real quick about the Oracle BI practice at Hyperion here. Really a collection of individuals that have decades of experience, hundreds of projects across many different industries, and pairing that expertise up with the deep Hyperion expertise that eCapital has, and really that integration point as Oracle continues to integrate all of these different products together becomes a more powerful solution set, and your organization might not be using Hyperion, and that's perfectly okay. We do focus on the platform where you're just using OBI on top of a data warehouse or a database. We do the BI applications as well. If you have the different source systems of Oracle's and you're looking to do BI and you want to jumpstart on that, the BI applications is a good jumpstart to the journey with Oracle BI here. And of course, mentioned the BI and the S-base integration, and it's great to have all these different pieces of technology, but you really want to have a good solid foundation, or really a strategy, and what is really the plan. That could be a 1-year plan, it could be a five-year plan as well. Definitely want to help you out with all the different aspects, and of course expert services related to the upgrade, outside of the upgrade, and of course training and support all related to OBI here. So let's jump forward one more time here, and we're going to look at really the timeline of the different 11G releases that have been out to date here. And so the 11G release went into beta testing back in June of 2009, and it definitely has been quite the evolution since then. And there's been, as you can see, all the red dots indicate a point release of 11G since then, and then you have the gray dot at the end, which is the next release that at least folks outside of Oracle are aware of, is that this 11.117 will happen presumably before the end of the calendar year. And so just looking at, sorry, it's great that there's been 8 releases since the beta release. Well, what does that really mean to me? Is the software stable? Should I even consider going to 11G? Do I need to wait any longer? And really, because that is such a burning question, a very valid question, especially going with new software where Oracle has rewritten much of the server layer within OBI itself, you want to make sure that you're not blazing the too big of a trail if that's not in your kind of DNA of the organization to blaze such a trail. And so back in October of last year is really where the 11.1151 release that came out. I mean, that's now a very solid foundation. The upgrade process really was streamlined, and of course, since then, Oracle has continued to streamline the upgrade and make it an extremely stable platform and much easier to administer and work within here. So from a risk perspective, looking at back in October and moving forward, the risk is dramatically less now, where there is a lot of proven upgrades and understanding of just what it takes to go through an upgrade, what are some of the challenges that folks are running into, and what is the appropriate approach for an upgrade. And we'll talk about those approaches and then the rollout strategy. Really all those lessons have been gleaned over the last almost year or so here. And so really want to share that and educate everyone on the phone to help make sure that their upgrade is as smooth and successful as possible. And of course, we're always here to help with that journey that you'll undertake, hopefully in the near future. So as part of the different upgrades, in the past, the upgrades really were just re-downloading the software and you're just installing it and running through the install wizard and great, or resave the repository and bring up the services and wonderful, we're up on the new release. Well, now with the rewrite of 11G, Oracle is getting OBI more in sync with the overall Oracle software and a product set as to how they do patches and releases, and just even from how the technology integrates with each other. OBI in the 10G world is definitely a very standalone product, where 11G it's now deeply integrated with the rest of the Oracle technology stack here. And so as part of that integration, the OPatch utility, the last several patches here, is what's been used to really, quote unquote, patch or upgrade to these other point releases here. And so, some of those patches, there might be one patch, there could be 7 patches, and then Oracle at the end of June introduced a new concept of this bundle patch, where it's really a series of patches that you're applying to get you up to the latest and greatest version. And some of those patches relate to OBI, and others relate to just the overall, some of the infrastructure related components to the tool here. So a lot of change on this side. OPatch is very easy to use, but it's definitely a change that is dramatically different from 10G, but is really the go-forward strategy for Oracle in doing its software releases here. And of course, like I mentioned, the 11.1170, whatever, the timing of that, presumably by the end of the calendar year. A lot of things that Oracle was hoping to get into the release back in June, will bump over into the 7.0, and then of course new features and functionality are always introduced within each of these different point releases, along with bug fixes. Lots of bug fixes. Every release there's been 100 to 200 different bug fixes that have been incorporated. So you can imagine over time here, if you add up all those different bug fixes, well, great. Others have gotten that behind them. They helped Oracle enhance and improve the software, so that as part of your upgrade, you don't have to go through some of those challenges. So that's kind of the other part around just the timeline, and really where is the 11G software today as you prepare and think through your upgrade to 11G. All right, so we talked about the timeline of the upgrade at the highest level. Let's look at the current state. So I mentioned 11.1162 Bundle Patch 1 is the latest version that is available. And again, that's in order to get to there, you have to download the main version, which is 11.1160, and then patch it to 6.1, 6.2, or Bundle Patch 1. And so, that's again, you're going to use that OPatch utility in order to make that happen. And of course, the current state is, you mentioned earlier, Oracle had really rewritten the architecture stack within OBI to fit deeper into the Fusion middleware, which is Oracle's strategic direction with all of its software here, and now OBI is part of that. It's true integration with that, and it's going to make it more easy to administer the different components within OBI and within the OBI domain. As we can see in the diagram here, there's a lot more components that comprise Oracle BI in 11G versus 10G. In 10G, we're really looking down at some of these system components, this top level. That really was 10G in itself. Well, now there's additional wrappers and services that fit into the Fusion middleware stack, and using this OPMN, that's the standard process management service within the Oracle architecture stack, even outside of the BI side here. Of course, we get into the WebLogic domain. Now we get into that higher level. All right, let's start managing all the different pieces of infrastructure within the Oracle Enterprise Manager. And this is where a lot of the rewrite occurred within the 11G software. So as you can imagine, a lot of work by Oracle went into 11G in order to get it to its current version, but also there's just a lot for administrators to ramp up and become educated around within this 11G version. So very exciting, always fun to learn new things, but at the same time there is a learning curve that goes into it. And so that's, a lot of information is out on the web, and once you get into it, and especially if you have a good background within the Oracle technology stack outside of BI, there's going to be a lot of familiar tools and screens and the way things work. The comfort factor is going to be very high when you jump into looking to administer your 11G environment. All right, so another part here is Oracle has spent a lot of time rewriting really the look and feel. And when I say look and feel, really look at the colors and the different fonts that they've used and the different types of charts, really to get Oracle BI more in line with the other BI tools in the marketplace, and then to even say, all right, the Web 2.0 direction that the websites and tools are going to, Oracle realized, wow, we've got a lot of catch up to do. Went ahead and rewrote a lot of the layouts and the different icons and the way the charts work, even the charting engine. Threw the old one away and have a brand new one now. And so all of that is to lead to more options for you as you deploy out your different BI reports and dashboards here, but also to just get a better user experience, to make it look more like the other websites that your organization might have, the internal and external ones, just to increase that comfort factor, like, oh wow, this looks familiar to what I've seen and used in the past. Therefore, you're going to be more comfortable with that tool and more likely to use it. And so, a lot of time spent. If you have seen the 11G, if you played around with it in a demo environment, or you've seen an Oracle pitch, or you've seen things out on the website, you'll say, wow, this does look a lot different. However, there's still a lot of comforts and things of, all right, here's how it worked in 10G. I can still see how this is going to work in 11G. Of course, some of the new features that are added, a number of new chart types. Some things, you have geospatial. Well, geospatial did exist within 10G. However, it is now more robust within 11G, something that took you, an hour to build using heavy JavaScript, and then presuming you're a JavaScript guru, you can build it you can build a lot of the same things within 11G. However, it's going to take you 10-15 minutes now, and it's point and click, drag and drop. You don't have to be a JavaScript expert. You have to know anything about JavaScript. Oracle has taken the leap forward in saying a map is just like a bar chart. Great. Everyone's familiar with how to build bar charts within 10G. Within 11G is a very similar concept, working with maps, which is awesome. Some new chart types. We have this trellis chart, and so this is additional ways for you to present information to your users. And so a trellis chart here real quick, for those that might not be as familiar with what they are and how they work. Really, as you look at, there's a common X and Y axis for every chart. So you have really a fair comparison or an equal comparison across, in this case, across the different parts of the world, over time, and by revenue. And so it's just another way to present information. Then you have these spark charts. And so spark charts some of you may be familiar with these, but these are really, there is no X and Y axis. I mean, you really have no idea, from an overall revenue perspective in this first column here, the revenue for the franchise org under the cell phone product type for 2008. You don't really know what that number is, and how does that really compare to the inbound org. Well, the point is that you just look for patterns. What are the highs and what are the lows in this particular graph here, and you can see how things are trending or moving across product lines. So you have the reds that are the low point in revenue, and then you have the green, that's the high point in revenue here. So just a real quick glance, look at the data. You might say, wow, this is really busy. It feels like I'm reading all the ticker symbols in the newspaper here, but really it just comes back to how are you presenting information, and what is the best way to do that, and what's the story that you want people to either interpret or to find as they're looking at these different types of charts, but a new chart nonetheless within 11G here. I mentioned earlier we have the maps. So in order to create a map like this in the past would take a very long time. You'd have to be a very, very technical person in order to make these work, and even then if you wanted to make any changes, well, you had to pretty much pull everything apart that you had assembled together in order to make the chart the way that it looks. But now within 11G, in order to have this chart, I mean, just like a pie chart, you just need to have the data points as to what am I going to actually chart. In this case, by state, what are the different categories, what are the different items within my legend, boom, you add it to it, and within a matter of minutes you have a chart like this that's drillable. You can drill up, drill across, and you can look at by state. And out of the box, there's a number of different maps that come with the application. So NavTech is the default maps. If you have Esri, great, you can use Esri maps. And really the point being that you can swap in and out the different types of maps that you may have already made an investment in. You use that within 11G, and then you can even get more granularity around getting down to the city level, getting down to even the street level, depending upon where you want to go, and level of detail that your maps that either you own or that you purchase can get you to. Out of the box, it'll get you down to a certain level of granularity, but really more than that, you get down to the street level, neighborhood level, and if you want to look at things by zip code, area code, you would need to really purchase those additional pieces of information from a company like NavTech, or find another means to secure that kind of detailed information. But the point being is that there's a lot more flexibility with these maps within 11G, which is definitely very, very exciting. Now we're starting to get into some of the cool factor, and as much as we'd all love to have a project approved because it's cool, it's just one of those little pieces that it's kind of icing on the cake when you're conveying, well, what's new? Why should I care about this 11G upgrade? Well, we can talk about all the things that Oracle had done to rewrite the underlying infrastructure. Well, that's pretty boring IT stuff. These maps are fun and cool, and people can really grasp onto these concepts. And another new feature is master detail linking. And so this is going to make your life a bit easier as a developer, and it'll make your end user's life a lot easier when consuming information and making the dashboards a more rich end user experience. So what I really mean by that is you have in the upper left-hand corner, you have the regional sales master view. And so great, you can see by region what are the revenue dollars. Well, that's wonderful. A lot of times you'd say, well, I need to drill down to find a little bit more detailed information because at the high level, I don't really know what this means. Well, you can click on it, in this case, by using master detail linking, you can click on the eastern region here, and it will go ahead and it'll update and rerun this regional sales detail view report off to the right-hand side here without having to spawn another report, without having to really click a go button and make it happen. And so you get that next level of detail all on the same report. And you can do likewise on the maps. You can do master detail linking on a map where you click on you have the map of the country, you can click on a state, and then maybe the state details by county, for example, come up, or maybe there's a territory within that individual state. So a lot of different ways to use master detail linking on a page in order to more robustly present information to your end users. And then scorecards. So in the past, in the 10G world, scorecards and scorecarding is really a separate product within the Oracle family, but outside of Oracle BI. Now within 11G, the scorecarding is embedded within 11G itself here, and so it's much like just building a map or building a pie chart. Well, now we're going to start using some of these KPIs, and you have the parent-child relationships within KPIs. So if your organization is very KPI-driven from the top down, scorecarding is going to be just a real natural evolution, because if you're used to scorecarding and you have the data stored within a data source that can be accessible by OBI, then to build these types of reports is very straightforward and very quick, and as often as that data updates, so then these scorecards will update and uses a lot of color, in this case red, green, and yellow, in order to indicate good and bad. And of course, you get down to the lower level of information as to, well, if something is red, well, I want to start at the top and drill down the child KPIs that support the overall top level KPI here, just to better understand where are my challenges, where should I focus my energy, especially at that strategic or that executive level, kind of thinking within your organization. So very, very neat, very powerful. Again, the biggest thing is really from a cultural fit. If the organization is used to tracking and even identifying KPIs, and if you can store that information in a place accessible by OBI, then scorecarding is very easy. If it's a cultural shift of, wow, we can hardly come up with our board member, what are the 10 KPIs that we want to measure success on for this year. If they're too high in the sky and we can't figure out what are the supporting ways to actually quantify those different KPIs, then scorecarding becomes hard. The technology is kind of a moot point at that level, since the technology is very easy to work with. It's just getting to that thought process around just using and driving a living by using KPIs. And of course, I should say, for those of you that have put OBI on top of SBase, in 10G it works. It was a little kludgy at times and frustrating, especially when you didn't have an equal a set of members at each level of a hierarchy. Most organizations, whether it's a product hierarchy or even an org chart, you're not going to have the perfect, all right, I've got my director, manager, employee. You might have director, employee, director, manager, yet another level of management, and then your people. So you have a very ragged hierarchy, which is the reality of most organizations. 10G didn't do a very good job at allowing you to present the ragged hierarchy. You had to smooth it out within a database and make it kind of fit with the 10G version. Well, now with an 11G, Oracle has taken the leap forward in saying, great, if it's a ragged or a skip level type of a hierarchy where it's not a perfect tree all the way down through the different levels, don't worry about it. We now have this concept called hierarchical columns, which is very common within the SBase world here. The hierarchical columns are what's going to allow really the native, if the data isn't perfect, much like in this particular picture here, it's not uniformly symmetrical at every single level, hierarchical columns will allow you to present that ragged or skip level hierarchy here. And you can see a little bit of a picture as to how that's looking here, where we have with the brand 2, we have C's and D's, that normally D's would be at the most granular level. Well, they're now at the appropriate level where they should be within the hierarchy. So the reality of what the data looks like as to when somebody entered into, say, SBase is now accurately represented within OBI. So that's a pretty big leap forward, especially for the folks that are using OBI on top of SBase. All right. finally, we can talk about the Oracle BI within 11G here. There was a kind of a half-hearted attempt within 10G, but now within 11G, there is a true application, a true app through iTunes that you can use on your iPhone and your iPad that renders the different charts and the different pages and the dashboards within those mobile devices here. And as of now, it's just available within iTunes. Android support is coming at some point. I don't know if it'll be later on this year or next year. And then BlackBerry is really TBD. I think the biggest piece around BlackBerry is just the future of the company of BlackBerry or RIM, or Research in Motion in itself, as to whether or not Oracle tackles this one. There is a licensing consideration with mobile and with the scorecards as well. So while all the features and functionality of the mobile and scorecarding are parts of the default 11G install and configuration, you still have to just make sure that if you're going to use those, that the license that you have, that you're porting over from the 10G world, it is going to cover those. And if not, there'll just be a small fee that you have to work out with your Oracle sales rep to cover those pieces. But like I said, if you're not sure, you even want to use the technology, scorecarding and mobile are part of the default installation. So you get to use them, kind of try it before you buy it, type of concept, to make sure that that's something that you really want to use. Now, when we're using these applications on your iPhone or iPad, I mean, they do take advantage and interact with the iOS that's on those devices. So it's not just some static charts that you can't do anything. Yes, you can do drilling, you can change your prompts, you can change your different dashboards, and it's going to adhere to the OBI security that you had logging in through a web browser, which is fantastic. That you don't have to come up with a brand new security model for the mobile world. But you do still need to make sure that you take the time once something is developed and look at it on a mobile device and say, is this the end user experience that we want to have? Yes, there have to be some negotiating depending upon how big your rollout is and just what types of users are consuming the information, but definitely a lot of good content out there, and definitely it's very exciting. A lot of organizations are talking about mobile. Having a mobile strategy across all of your applications definitely helps. But with the Oracle BI, at least the mobile portion is going to use your corporate VPN security. It's going to use the OBI security, and it's going to render the same things that you see on a dashboard through your web browser on that mobile device. So very, very cool and very exciting. Just to give you a little bit of a sneak peek, other than me just talking about, yes, it's neat and cool. Well, here is what your home screen or home page look like within an iPad here. Across the bottom, you have very intuitive types of icons here. So like a standard iPad or iTunes application, very easy to use. Find information. Come down and say, well, here's actually what a page would look like. I mean, you can envision this is a standard page within OBI that's been rendered on an iPad. So we have across the top, you can see what dashboard you're actually looking at here. You can see the page. The page is a set of drop-downs. It aren't tabs across the top that you would be used to seeing within a web browser, just really to save on real estate that you're limited to work with on an iPad. You have a number of different prompts across the top that are appropriate for the page and your apply or AKA go button across the top here, and you have some additional prompts, and you can see these reports. Wow, this looks familiar. This is something that I would see if I was consuming this page via a web browser here. So of course, not everything within OBI is rendered on an iPad. Part of it is there just isn't the appropriate technology within the iPad to make this happen, and the other part is Oracle is still working on some of these to get them integrated within the iPad or the iOS operating system here. So just a real quick list of some things. Hopefully this isn't too big of a deal for for the things that you've created, but for the most part, the things that you have built and added to your pages and dashboards are going to work on your iPad. Of course, you still need to go through the testing process and just to better understand what is that end user experience and what do we want that end user experience to be like in using a mobile device with OBI. All right, so let's talk a bit about really preparing for the upgrade itself. Of course, you want to come up with a plan. First off, come up. What is your business case to upgrade? I mean, Oracle hasn't said 10G support is going away. In the near future, at some point, Oracle will say we want everyone to upgrade to 11G, and we'll help you if you have a question on 10G. But at some point, it's going to be inevitable that you will want to or will need to upgrade. But in the interim, what is the business case? Is it the mobile piece that you get excited about? Is it there's a much larger user base that you're going to be rolling out to, and so you just need to make sure that you build that valid business case and everyone understands why we're doing this, so that you can go get funding to actually do the upgrade. Because as part of the upgrade, there's a number of things that you need to think through which impact the overall kind of funding and then tie back into the business case and the ROI here. Really is you want to review your hardware sizing. Things have changed a bit within 11G. Everything is 64-bit compliant, so yay for that. It's not 32-bit emulated. You just want to make sure that if the servers are 3, 4, 5 years old, well, maybe it's time to refresh those, and this is a good opportunity to make that happen. You do need to spend some time going through and cleaning up your existing RPD and presentation catalog before the upgrade, because you'd hate to go through and troubleshoot and upgrade things that people aren't using. Then, of course, you need to figure out your upgrade approach and your rollout strategy. And we'll talk a bit more in a couple minutes here as to what are the options and what do these really mean. Of course, you need to then build a corresponding project plan that fits all the things that you've discovered in this decision-making process here, because that will all feed into the business case that you have to present forward. It could be a formal business case, could be informal, but you definitely want to have a good grasp on really the approach that you want to take before you get too far down the road here. All right. So a bit more around the preparation. I mentioned earlier that the hardware is a little bit more intensive for this 11G version, or for any 11G version. You want to be able to take advantage of the RAM increases that you can have with a 64-bit operating system, but really want to just even have a starting point. If you haven't already done so, just really take an inventory of what are all my servers today, what are they running, is the performance good, how many users are on these boxes, what's the projected user base for the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, just to make sure that you're appropriately sizing the hardware here. And then, of course, you want to go through your RPD, really look at the how much have you customized and added some advanced functionality here. Advanced functionality can be like database hints. Well, why did you add the database hints? Because it was SQL that OBI was executing that you didn't like, or the database didn't like, so you had to add some hints for performance reasons. And just even as part of the upgrade wizard for the repository, the upgrade wizard is going to be more strict in making sure that you follow good development practices within the repository itself. So, for example, on all the fact logical table sources, setting it to a level of a particular hierarchy. You might say, well, I don't even have any hierarchies. Well, you're going to want to build some of those hierarchies because you could run into some additional error messages as part of the upgrade wizard itself. And of course, you have the pruning of your unused objects. Again, you don't want to spend time, effort, and energy working with things that nobody's using or they've been turned off for a while for whatever reason. Well, take the time and opportunity here that you have in order to clean it up and to make sure you have the best RPD. And of course, we'll jump into it, the presentation catalog as well. a lot of times when you go through these upgrades, you might put your RPD through the upgrade wizard and it comes back, well, you have 1,000 errors. Well, holy cow, 1,000 errors sounds like a lot. When the reality is because of the increased scrutiny that the upgrade wizard is going to have, there might be one error message or one issue within that RPD that spawned 999 more error messages. So you want to avoid as best you can those types of situations here. So that way you just reduce the number of errors that you're trying to troubleshoot. And you also want to do that within the catalog, remove those subject areas, those dashboards, pages, reports, and prompts that you aren't using, or you've identified some of these we're not sure if they're being used, and then others we know definitely aren't being used. Well, get rid of the ones that you know for sure. Try to do a little bit more research around the ones that you aren't sure around. Use the usage tracking to see what you can identify and glean out as to what is and isn't being used. Of course, within 11G, there's also new security options. So you want to just document what are we doing today for authorization, authentication, single sign-on, the whole SSL. What are we doing today? How are we doing it? Is it working well? And then marrying that up with, well, what's our new or different options within 11G? If you have a very complex security setup, this is going to be an area that you're going to want to spend more time on and more analysis up front versus just kind of jumping in and winging it and seeing how it goes. All right, from an upgrade approach perspective, really two main options here. Really, it's the upgrade or migration, which is a like for like. Take what you have within the 10G world and upgrade it into 11G, and then do your security integration and your regression test. That's going to be the 95% of the world is going to take that approach. The redeploy option is reserved for those organizations that they are struggling with their OBI implementation because of low user adoption. Maybe they don't like the look and feel, the layout, or maybe there isn't enough data that's in there to be very meaningful to those users. This could be a good opportunity to say, we've collected a lot of feedback over the years. We understand there's some unhappiness out there. Let's go ahead and use the upgrade and bake that into an overall project where we're going to look at providing value, find the low-hanging fruit, find a champion out there that says, well, here's what I really want. Based upon all the lessons that have been learned over the years, you take the time to reset, really. Of course, there's new requirements, new ETL, new building within your repository and your dashboard, but it could be a good means to kind of reinvigorate and relaunch OBI within your organization. Now, there are a set of common tasks, of course, across each of these upgrade approaches. Like I mentioned before, you're going to want to look at the hardware and software, especially when you get into your higher environments, so your production and then your integration or test environments. Traditionally, you want to have those on dedicated hardware if you have a larger user base that's going to be hitting those different servers. Otherwise, you can keep things on your virtual machines and for your lower instances, but it really just comes down to what has that end user experience been in your current kind of setup and situation here. And of course, you're going to do your installation of OBI. Now OBI actually requires you to install a set of tables into an underlying database as part of the install process itself. So you can't even complete an install successfully without having access to a database or the right access to a database, because OBI needs to put some information in those tables about itself. And right now, the information really is about the server. When we're hoping that Oracle is now bridging or is dipping its toe in the water to push more and more pieces of information about OBI into the database layer. Within 10G, it's very file intensive. While it's still very file intensive in 11G, however, we're hoping that Oracle is going to take some of those files and spawn them into database tables and A common question comes up is, well, are they going to put the repository at some point in the database instead of having it in its own standalone file? Well, don't know. It would be, in many ways, it would be nice if Oracle went that route. But I have a feeling if they did go that route, you'd be confined to just doing that within an Oracle database and not any other type of database here. So we'll see what Oracle does in the future for that, but for now, it's just information about itself that gets installed into the database. Of course, once you do the install, you want to configure it, and then deploy it out there and say, okay, great, we got it deployed, but deploy doesn't mean go live, everyone's using it. Deploy means it's ready for regression testing. Now, once you get through really your approach, now you want to have the rollout strategy. Well, what is the best way to do a rollout strategy? Well, it's going to come down to a number of different factors that you'll have to decide are appropriate for your organization. So one of them being really this proof of concept. You build the business case, so maybe upgrading a sandbox environment. So you have the little internal roadshow. They can go and tell people. You can have the trial and error within your organization on your IT team and with some of your power users to really help build out that business case and gain momentum for the approval to upgrade your other environments. And then definitely you can regression test a lot more because there is no pressure or as high of pressure to get 11G rolled out, and this works well really for complex upgrades, or if your organization, if you have the luxury to go this route. The other approach is really we call it a big bang. You have a narrow window to do the rollout. The narrow window could be a lot of different reasons: availability of people, other key projects starting, but you have a short window to get this in. You don't have a very complex environment. Today you have a couple handfuls of subject areas. You might have a couple hundred reports. Okay, that might be an easy one to work through. You don't have a lot of complex security. You haven't done a lot of user interface like the skinning and styling of 11G. And so you can have a more aggressive rollout schedule that you don't take it as much time to go through kind of the slow upgrade. You just kind of upgrade and roll it out as quickly as feasible here. Of course, in a perfect world, it would be awesome if we could always do the proof of concept, take our time, prove it out. The reality is you might not have the luxury in your environment, and definitely understand that. That's why there's the dual rollout strategy here. So baking all of those different factors into an overall project plan, you can do an easy to medium upgrade, in just in 6 to 8 weeks. Very feasible to do that. Have your regression testing. Take it from your sandbox to your dev, maybe your test, and your production environment. That can all happen very, very quickly. Presuming you have all the necessary hardware up front to make that happen. Of course, there's a lot of variables that play into this, and you have just getting the hardware. Do you have a lot of orphan or objects that you need to remove out of the repository and presentation catalog? What is your upgrade approach, your rollout approach, your security model, the complexity of some of your reports, and have you done any customizations to the skins and style sheets that you want to reapply within 11G? And of course, your budget is always going to be an influencer on something like this, which taking all of those variables into account will really determine, is the 6 to 8 week approach feasible, or is it longer? I mean, it definitely can take 3 to 4 months if you have a very, very mature environment with complex reports and hundreds, if not thousands, of users. Of course, because of the size and scale, you're going to need to take extra time in order to work through the upgrade. But hopefully this at least gives you kind of a swag to start with here in regards to what your upgrade might look like. And of course, we're always here to help and help flesh out, well, what do we feel the upgrade would take, what's the appropriate upgrade approach, and what's the appropriate rollout approach, and help you with the security as well. So that's where eCapital Advisors comes in to help you through and to think through a lot of these different pieces here. So regression testing, obviously very important, especially if you have a lot of reports and dashboards that you need to work through. Regression testing, because of its potential scale and complexity here, you want to make sure that you identify up front who do you want your testers to be. If it's an IT-run project, you can't just have the IT team doing the testing and turning it over to your business users and saying, yep, we tested it, things are good. You still want to take the similar approach that when you rolled out OBI the first time around, you had some of the subject matter experts or those power users that you engaged early in the project do the same thing with the regression testing. They're going to be able to identify more quickly what are the important areas and pieces to test. And of course, they will be part of the process, and they can help say, yes, we are comfortable with this upgrade. We are definitely ready for go live. So the knowledge transfer would have happened as part of them being included in the regression testing process. And just to help out with a formula, like a lot of times we get asked the question, well, how many reports can somebody test in a day or week, and how long is it going to take me to get through my reports? There's a pseudo formula up on the screen here. If you look at X number of reports per day and how many you can get through a week and how long it would take to get through, say, 600 reports, roughly it would take 6 weeks. Of course, that can go a lot faster if you have more resources, if the complexity isn't as high, and if there really aren't any changes that someone needs to make as part of the regression testing. Of course, you can churn through many more reports in a shorter period of time. But that's just really a starting point to try to get your arms around coming up with a formula that gets baked into your overall project plan. So here's what the architecture is going to look like at a logical 10,000-foot type of architecture with 11G and how it would fit into your ecosystem of BI, EPM, and data warehousing, along with the end user interaction points here. So we still have OBI, in its world where you have the dashboards and now mobile, and then you have SBase. OBI 11G does a much better job of working with SBase cubes. You now pull in the full outline within OBI, and you have now the hierarchical columns. Life is a lot better and a lot easier, and OBI is still going to issue MDX queries down to SBase, and your finance users are still going to use SBase the way that they use it today. That's not going to have to change, and at the same time, you can keep the data within SBase. You don't have to pull the data out of SBase and put it in your data warehouse. Keep it in there. Let OBI do the work of having to pull queries across the different data sources and then stitch them together into a report. Take that complexity out of the mix here, and it's a much cleaner and easier to work with architecture, at least from a logical perspective here within 11G, because now if you throw in your Exalogic or your Exalytics, OBI and SBase can run on one of those boxes, and so now you can even put hardware, attack hardware to help solve with some of the software challenges that you're having here. So just to give you just kind of a look as to how OBI fits within that. And then we get down to just a couple of questions that we get asked a lot, and just wanted to go over them real quick. What happens to my skins and style sheets and all the XML files that I customize within 10G? Well, a lot of this will need to be redone manually. That is just due to the directory structure is dramatically different within 11G, and so all the files have moved, and there's new files. So you would need to start over with that if those skins and style sheets are important to you. Some organizations say, I only did that in 10G because I thought that was, the cool thing to do because marketing wanted to do it, but the reality is I just don't have budget for it, and it wasn't as meaningful as I thought it was going to be. Great. Now you don't have to worry about that. And some of those XML file tags, they are now within the Fusion middleware stack that you now just use a web browser to update, and you can't update the XML file anymore. So a lot of different things changed over there. Common question is, well, WebLogic is the application server for 11G. It comes as part of the install. It's not a separate license. It's just all baked in together. Well, as of today, WebLogic is the only application server that you can use. We've heard some rumors that in the future, Oracle is saying that you'll be able to use other application servers, but until then, no ETA on when that might happen or what might be next in line. WebLogic is really the default application server. Another question around just hierarchies. We've built out a lot of hierarchies within 10G. They're very important to our organization. Well, what happens with 11G? I heard about hierarchical columns. Does hierarchical columns blow these hierarchies away? No, they don't. When you upgrade, the hierarchies that you have do upgrade seamlessly to 11G, and then those hierarchical columns, those are something that you'd have to create in addition to the hierarchies that you have today. So that's good. You won't lose the work that you've done in 10G. Well, how does the RPD security model convert? Well, this is definitely a larger change that Oracle has implemented. Your users and groups that you used to put within the RPD is now all done really within the Fusion middleware. It has its own LDAP server. There's users, there's groups, there's now application roles that you need to kind of factor in when you handle your security. An administrator user that you used to have within the repository is no longer in there. There is really no such thing as this Uber administrator. So that's just something to be aware of. I mentioned earlier about the ragged hierarchies. I talked a bit about just how 11G handles those ragged hierarchies via the hierarchical columns. So that's fantastic for those folks that have used Essbase. And also mentioned earlier about the graphs within 11G. Oracle threw away the old graphing engine and now replaced it with this new graphics engine called ADF DVT, which really just gives you a lot better look and feel. The color palette is better, and it just falls in line with that Web 2.0 direction that Oracle is taking the UI with 11G. And then the install, touched a bit upon the install earlier, in that now OBI needs to actually connect up to an underlying database to write information to tables as part of its install. I don't know what the future really holds as to how much more information will get pushed down there, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. What's new in 11G? I would say if you had to give a 10-second answer, definitely mobile, scorecarding, better maps, the Essbase integration, and really the rewrite of the server architecture stack. And then finally, has MUD been improved? Is it any different within 11G? It really is generally the same within 11G. So, but ideally, it would have been nice to see over time, especially with 11G, that MUD get a little bit more advanced and be a little bit easier to work with. But up to this point, we haven't seen a lot of changes with MUD, for better or worse. But again, another one we're keeping our fingers crossed on for the future. All right, so that concludes our webinar for today here. We appreciate the time and energy and effort that you have put into carving out the niche for us today.